again, AI is very much like that in the sense that the person that is using it, and more importantly, the data and the information that they use, the prompts that they give, all of that information dictates how well that tool is able to be used, right? And so I don't want buyers to be out there using this ineffectively or using it in the wrong way, and then having them lead them down the wrong path, because it can become dangerous and inaccurate in certain instances. And so you want to make sure that you are getting the best information and using it in the appropriate way to really benefit you and not cause more harm than actual good, right? So I wanted to talk. Welcome to the Home Goals Podcast, the ultimate guide for turning your home goals into a reality. I'm your host, Derek Thornton. Join us as we navigate the twists and turns of obtaining a home. We'll be offering expert tips, helping you avoid pitfalls, and championing your journey towards that cherished place to call home. In this week's episode, I wanted to take a moment to discuss AI in real estate, and more importantly, how buyers can use that AI or artificial intelligence to improve and stay ahead of the curve with their home search process. AI is something that we're hearing more and more about on an everyday basis. It's becoming a regular part of our everyday lives with each passing day. It's something that we're continually starting to use. Just in the real estate world alone, I just came from a conference with the National Association of Realtors last week, and it was just a ton of resources and information and platforms and sessions talking about all the ways that we as realtors can use AI in our business too, because again, it's something that is becoming an increasingly large part of our lives. Very much the way that the internet kind of started to infiltrate every part of our lives, AI is starting to have that very same impact. And so I wanted to talk through some of the ways that home buyers can begin to use that tool in their own home search and helping them become better buyers and become more prepared and more organized with the process. Now, the one thing that you have to understand about AI is that it is a tool, and just like any other tool that's out there, it's always going to be restricted to the person that is using that tool, right? So if you gave me a hammer and a chisel, best I can do is pretty much just open up a can of paint for you. But if you put that same hammer and chisel in the hands of an artist, right, a Michelangelo or someone, they could carve a beautiful statue out of stone, right? They have so much more capabilities. And again, AI is very much like that in the sense that the person that is using it, and more importantly, the data and the information that they use, the prompts that they give, all of that information dictates how well that tool is able to be used, right? And so I don't want buyers to be out there using this ineffectively or using it in the wrong way, and then having them lead them down the wrong path, because it can become dangerous and inaccurate in certain instances. And so you want to make sure that you are getting the best information and using it in the appropriate way to really benefit you and not cause more harm than actual good, right? So I wanted to talk through just some of the ways that I've found that buyers can really use this to help them. One thing, and I always preach this too with buyers who are starting their search, that is a great tool for you to use when you're trying to analyze market trends. Doing research is one of the most underrated aspects of the home buying process. It's the one that often gets overlooked. People, they get enamored with the shiny objects and the pretty houses and the nice kitchens and the beautiful furniture and staging and all that stuff. And they forget about all of the other things and factors that need to go into play, right? They forget about the just how much importance the annual appreciation is in that neighborhood, or what the long-term impact is of purchasing that particular home in that particular area. There's upgrades or changes that they're going to need to make, right? Are there important systems that are going to need to be changed out in the very near future, and how is that going to impact your equity and what you're able to do with that house, right? What happens if you end up having to move faster than you thought you would, right? All of these things are kind of playing into that fact, and so you need to make sure that you're doing plenty of research way before you ever actually get into the home buying process, right? You want to know all of this stuff ahead of time. That way you're not making decisions that are not fully informed. You want to have as much of that information as you possibly can. Your realtor is definitely going to help you with that too, but you can also use ChatGPT to kind of get some general information. Now, I wouldn't necessarily treat this like the gospel because, again, it's just pulling data and resources from what it finds on the internet. Sometimes that data is accurate, sometimes it may not be, right? And so like you want to be mindful of the fact that you're not treating this as like, oh, this is the absolute truth that I'm seeing right here. But it can still give you some general information to get an idea of like, hey, if I'm comparing two different neighborhoods or two different zip codes and I want to kind of get a better feel of like, hey, what are houses like selling in this area? Or what are some things based on what the tool or the AI option that you're using based on what it can find in certain areas or certain platforms or forums or dashboards. What are some key elements that things like or that people like about living in this particular neighborhood? What is the likelihood of me being able to sell quickly in this particular area, right? How much inventory is in this neighborhood versus this neighborhood, right? And if I did have to sell, what is the likelihood that I'll be able to sell at a faster rate based on these other two? You can use a lot of these AI tools to be able to analyze that information, right? And you can say like, hey, here's what I'm finding on here too. And help me determine what would be the better option based on what my needs are. And again, this goes back to the prompts that you set it up, right? When you're looking with or using an LLM or a large language model like a ChatGPT or like a Gemini or something like that, you can go into those systems and input information and say, hey, here's what I'm looking for. I would like to find this type of house. I'm looking for this type of return on that investment. I would like to be in a situation where if I needed to sell quickly, I could. So based on those criteria that I sent you and these particular neighborhoods that I'm looking at, in the information that you have available to you, what do you think is the best option, right? You can just play around with it, ask questions like that, and kind of get a better feel for it, right? So it's great for just analyzing general market data before you kind of get up and running into really learning about a particular area. Still use your agent as a resource to understanding about particular areas and neighborhoods, because there may be certain things that an agent may know that are not regularly posted on online forums or known about on a regular basis, right? An agent may know about a zoning issue in a particular neighborhood, or they may know about a plant or something that's going to be built in the very near future that's going to impact houses in that neighborhood. ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever you may be using may not be aware of that information just yet, or may not know where to look in that moment because of the information that you're providing or the prompts that you're giving. So you want to make sure that you're kind of treating it with everything that you receive with a grain of salt, and saying like, hey, I might want to just double check and confirm this, but this can at least kind of get the ball rolling on me learning more about the area. Another thing too is that it also helps with general just home buying education, as well as terminology and vocab and all those things. We somewhat speak kind of a different language in the real estate world. There's a lot of words that we use, due diligence, right? Earnest money, right? Like all these things that we use that you typically don't hear about in everyday life. And so if you're trying to go through the process of learning about the home buying, granted, it's different depending on what state you're in, what area you're in. Sometimes there's a rule and sometimes there's just an etiquette in a particular area, right? So like in the state of North Carolina, for example, we all work off of the same standard forms that are provided by our state association. However, real estate is hyper locals, right? So it works differently in different areas. So there's some areas that use different features or parts of the contract differently than we do in other areas, right? It just depends on what the market is like in that particular option and how that all plays into it. And so it's not like you can say, oh, I know North Carolina's forms, I know how they work, I understand them, I fed it into ChatGPT, it gave me a summary, and now I know how to write up an offer. You still may not know the etiquette or the norms for most transactions or deals in a particular market. Writing an offer on those same forms can be completely different when you're writing an offer on something at the beach versus something in the heart of Raleigh versus something that's in Asheville, right? It's all different things that you need to keep in mind. And so, again, be careful with the way that you use it, but it can help give you just some general insight and knowledge on how those things work, right? And so when we're talking about those words that you may not hear in everyday conversation, if you maybe forgot to, or you were too scared to ask your agent or your lender what a particular word or something that they referenced, what that means, that can be an opportunity for you to use AI to kind of give you a better understanding of what exactly it's talking about. Like, hey, they mentioned escrow. What the heck is escrow? What does that mean? Or like, hey, they mentioned an earnest money deposit. Like, how does that work? Or they mentioned an escrow agent or a closing attorney, right? Like all these different things that you may not hear from time to time on the regular everyday conversation. It can be a way to kind of help give you that education in those terms and helping you understand, like, hey, here's typically what it means and some general information and insight that you want to have as well. Another way that you can use this particular tool is to stay organized, right? Especially when you're on the home search hunt and you're trying to keep track of all these different houses that have different options that you like. You got like this one over here, you like that one over there. And now a few years ago, inventory was so low that you usually only had maybe one or two houses that you could look at in any given day. Nowadays, we're starting to get back into the norms of what I saw prior to the pandemic, where you have buyers asking to see 6, 7, 10 homes in a day, right? In some cases, right? And so like they're trying to see all these different properties and they're trying to keep all this information organized and sorted. That would be a wonderful opportunity for you to use AI to kind of bring all those things together, right? So you can say like, hey, help me organize this content, this data. Here are the things checked off that are most important to me based on what I'm giving you or explaining to you. I can upload the MLS summaries for those sheets into one of those LLMs, right? Into ChatGPT, into Gemini, into one of those other options right there. Have them analyze, give a quick summary of it and say, hey, based on this information, based on the things that we say we like, how would you rank these homes, right? What are some things that we need to keep track of, right? You can have a list and create a spreadsheet of all that information so you can keep track of that stuff. I tell buyers all the time, once you get past about, I'd say like 5 or 6 homes that you're seeing in a single day, after that point, you're kind of like, you're working backwards almost in a sense, right? If you're seeing 12 houses in a single day, the average person is not going to remember the details and the nuts and bolts and stuff like that of 12 different houses. If anything, they're going to start to run together in your mind, especially if you're looking in the same general area. You're going to forget the difference between house number 2 and house number 8 versus house number 4 and house number 12, right? Like it's all going to start to run together in your mind. And at that point, it's like, okay, was this really a productive day of showings, or did I just jumble my mind with way too much information for me to actually keep track of things? And so you can use AI to your advantage to kind of help you organize and sort all of that information so that you can quickly and efficiently boot out whatever options you're not looking at, what you do want to focus on, and then use that to kind of get a better feel for what may be the best fit for you, right? And so it's great for staying organized, giving you that general market stats, helping explain certain terms or things that may not have made sense to you in the process. But overall, the most important thing is that it really helps to enhance or improve or supplement the information that you're receiving from the qualified professionals in that area, right? So it's improving the information that you learn from your lender, from your realtor, from your inspector, from your closing attorney. Like all those people that you're working with in the deal, you're still wanting to lean heavily on their knowledge and expertise. However, you also can use this as a way to supplement that, to make sure that you have a better understanding and a better organization of how the process is working for you. Now, some ways that I've seen people use it that probably wasn't the best fit is that I've seen or heard of more and more stories where buyers will take an inspection report, feed it into ChatGPT, and let ChatGPT tell them, hey, you need to ask for this, this, and this, or you need to ask for this much money off, or this is how much it's going to take to fix this. Again, you want to lean heavily on the expertise of your agent, because you need to understand that in any of these transactions, you're working with a human on the other side of that deal, right? It's not a robot to robot interaction that's going on in these repair negotiations and everything. It's another human on the side, a human that has their own desires, their own wants and needs, their own goals of what they're trying to get out of this transaction. And real estate, especially residential real estate, is super emotional, right? There's a lot of emotion that comes into play, more than most people even realize. And again, you don't want to just take a computerized response and try to give that to an emotional person in the deal, because that's always going to often lead to problems and issues and other things, right? So you want to work with your agent to figure out, okay, what type of leverage do we have in this situation, right? Because ChatGPT may not even realize that our standard state contracts say every house is purchased as is, right? So the seller doesn't have to fix anything, right? You can request all day long, but if you, unless you're willing to walk away from your due diligence fee, you need to understand that you need to be able to work with that seller and try to find a common ground that can work for both of you. But there's a lot of things that need to go into that, right? So you might say, hey, here's what ChatGPT said. What would you say, Mr. or Mrs. Realtor, is a good option for me to kind of come back? That's a reasonable request that fits in line with what is expected. Because again, a lot of these different AI models and tools, they may not be aware of the nuances or the etiquette or the different things that are going on in the transaction, and you can really lead yourself down a bad road at that point, right? I've had a lot of transactions and deals over the years that have closed, that have had falling through or that have been terminated over just the smallest problems, the smallest amount of money. I've had people pass up or give up or walk away from thousands of dollars over something that was only going to cost a few $100s. But they just didn't want to give up that extra thing because, again, emotion comes into the mix, and then people are worried about like all these other things, and pride gets in the way, and all these other factors start coming in the mix. And before you know it, they're walking away from this deal over something that could have been very easily resolved, right? If you're looking at these deals and these transactions on paper, it looks very easy to come to a resolution, right? It's like, oh, you just do that or move this over here or change that one issue or that one problem, and bam, you're off to the races. But again, you're not taking into account the human factor, the human condition that comes into play with every residential real estate transaction. And those are the moments where you really need to, again, lean on your professionals who are in your area to kind of understand what is the best fix. And so, again, I'm not against anyone using AI in transactions, but I don't want you to ever become dependent on that, because again, it's just a tool that should be used to help aid or supplement what you're already using, into making your job a little bit easier, a little more efficient, but it should never be the end all be all. So hope that that's helpful for you. Again, we'll be continuing, I'm sure, to add AI into all different facets of the home buying process. There are going to be some times where it is like the best thing that ever happened and it made life a ton easier. And there's going to be some areas where it's a terrible thing that caused a lot of problems that didn't need to be there, right? That's the same with anything, right? It's the same with the internet. When the internet came along, there were some great things about the internet, and there were some not so great things, but we found a way to make it work for us, and we will continue to do that even with AI and the development of it as it's merging its way into every part of our lives. And so I hope that's helpful for you all. Again, I'm always here to be a resource for you. Let me know if you ever have any questions, and I'll talk to you all next week. Have a good one.